The following video is compiled from the work of Nelson Birdwall's Landscape Architecture of Charlottesville, Virginia, and Ramboll Studio Dreisettel, Singapore. Yella Hendrik Kelly, design director at Ramboll's Singapore studio, is here today to offer his insights and clarification on their projects. IIA acknowledges and thanks the two firms, and especially Yella and Breck, for their inputs and assistance in this presentation. Living City, designing processes for the urban ecosystem. The city is an ecosystem. A natural ecosystem is a web of interlinked cycles. The sun's energy is captured by plants and moves through multiple trophic levels in the energy cycle. The water cycle is the movement of water into, through, and out of the ecosystem. The urban ecosystem, too, is a complex one comprised of multiple underlying processes. The primary cycles underlying an urban ecosystem are those of air, energy, materials, water, and most importantly, people. A city is like a single living entity. It works well when all of its component systems function properly, when its cycles are in balance. They reach an equilibrium unique to the context and conditions of that city. Amsterdam and Venice were both based on a water transportation network of canals, both European cities in a delta, but so different from each other in urban flavor. They work differently. They feel different from one another. Just like an ecosystem, just like any living organism, if one of its systems is disrupted, the equilibrium gets unbalanced. For a city, such a disruption can cause a breakdown in the functioning, even to the point of rendering it unlivable. It's said that Cochin replaces Musaras as the premier entrepot in central Kerala, following just 1 year of devastating floods in the Periyar in the 13th century. An urban ecosystem is to be understood by its workings. How do its component cycles function of themselves and in relation to each other? A breakdown in the system can be addressed by analyzing the city in terms of the cycles and processes underlying it. Where is the disruption, and how can we restore it to equilibrium? Cities all over the world face problems of air quality, sometimes even to the point where they begin to affect day-to-day life. While pollution sources in the urban region are often a primary contributing factor, the underlying cause for hazardous levels of air pollution in a city is usually its location. The winter haze and smog plaguing Los Angeles, Beijing, and New Delhi is not because they emit vastly higher quantities of pollutants and particulate matter than others. It's primarily because of global patterns of wind flows and regional climatic factors. These and other cities lying along the global belts of haze, stretching from Dakar to Beijing, have a unique climatic situation. They're prone to seasonal weather phenomena such as temperature inversion. They also lie in the path of continental drifts of atmospheric particulate matter. However, it's when these background causes are exacerbated by local contributive factors that we get hazardous levels of pollution and particulate matter in the city's air. But this is not to say that nothing can be done to prevent smog, haze, and hazardous levels of air pollution. The city's own sources of emissions can be controlled, even seasonally curtailed. Beijing has even installed solar-powered air purifiers of neighborhood scale. In Canada, direct air capture technology is touted as science's answer to air pollution control. Computational fluid dynamic models for air movements and pollution levels can help predict and avert smog, haze, and hazardous pollution. In New Delhi, for example, predictive computer models for global and regional wind patterns can help decide when to shut down and prevent emissions from thermal power plants upwind of the city. Sometimes, however, the solution might also lie elsewhere, not immediately obvious. Slow-moving traffic is a reason why New Delhi's vehicular emissions are much higher than cities with a similar population of vehicles. One answer to curtailing air pollution then is a road system that allows vehicles to traverse the same distance in less time and with fewer exhaust fumes. Systematic analysis with accurate data can precisely identify problems and pinpoint apt solutions. Urban parks have long been recognized as green lungs for a city. Wooded parks in the heart of thickly populated downtown provide inordinate aesthetic and experiential impact while performing their ecological service. City Garden in St. Louis, Missouri is a classic example of the wooden urban park rigidly framed by dense urban fabric. Few like Central Park in New York are so large as to be ecologically effective on air quality and microclimate at city level. However, given suitable scale, carefully planned urban reforestation has the potential to achieve this. Memorial Park is a 1,500-acre, part wilderness, part recreation hub located just 6 kilometers west of downtown Houston. Urban areas are heat sinks. Cities consume energy in huge quantity and dissipate spent energy as waste heat. Urban heat islands are results of this. Not only is energy demand concentrated in urban pockets, it's also non-uniform, highly variable across the hours of the day and between seasons in a year. In April-May, air conditioners turned on at the beginning of the workday drive electricity consumption to asymmetric peaks in cities across the northern humid tropics. In the UK, they had the teapot effect. It was an instantaneous surge in electricity consumption caused by millions of electric kettles simultaneously switched on during breaks in popular TV programs. Mitigating this required enormous effort and resources. Computational models for power generation and usage produced by meticulous study and planning can provide predictive prescriptions for energy management. As the world shifts to renewables like solar and wind, these imbalances become more acute. Production too becomes asymmetric. The answer is in efficient energy management, integration of production, storage, and consumption. Such smart energy systems also require new flexible energy usage and storage solutions. In turn, this requires extensive and precise data and long-term planning. For example, Denmark has wind power resources that produce periodic surpluses. Following in-depth studies and analysis, Ramboll proposed exploiting the already extensive district heating system in Denmark's cities as a cost-effective means of using and storing electricity. Anders Derland explains, surplus wind power can be put into big heat pumps and thus used in the district heating systems, instead of investing in new transmission lines to other countries to export periodic surpluses. The study also recommends that biogas use be expanded as a stabilizing factor in the system, a more sustainable and energy-secure solution than steps such as increasing biomass imports. Optimizing energy in a city, however, involves more than just planning the production and utilization of energy. Søren Hansen, project director at Ramboll, says, "The new way of working with sustainability is to balance all elements. This applies to solar cells, heating stations, waste to energy, water consumption, transportation, cultural events, managing urban water, and adapting to climate changes. All of this needs to be balanced into one sustainable whole." A best practice example could be the district of Nordhavnen in Copenhagen, where the energy management has been carefully planned. It is also planned on the 5-minute principle. A dense urban development in which all facilities, school, daycare, grocery store, or the metro can be reached in a bicycle ride of 5 minutes or less. The challenge of creating a sustainable city is not to create life, but to create the good life, says Klaus Billerhoge, section chief at Copenhagen Municipality. Cities from time immemorial have been consumers. They consume the output from their hinterlands, supplemented with imports from far and wide, digest these and spew out waste. The channeling of goods into a city and their distribution is often the energy driving the city's commerce. For a city based on trade, the market is indeed its soul. The movement of goods into and through a city and the removal of its excretions are a complex process. In ancient cities, they can be seen to have evolved into equilibrium over time. Cities of modernity struggle with the same issues: how to move into and through the dense urban grain, the ever larger demands of a growing urban population. Even more critically, how to remove the vast amounts of wastes produced by this over-consuming urban population. Poor management of solid wastes plagues all of India's cities today. The issue, if compounded by the fact that no one wants a waste processing plant in their neighborhood. What if handling waste wasn't a liability anymore? What if a garbage plant was an asset to a locality? This is Amagerbacke, a waste-to-energy plant in Copenhagen. The design is the result of an architectural competition won by Bjarke Ingels Group. The plant converts non-recyclable waste to energy. It operates at an energy efficiency of 107%, supplying low-carbon electricity to more than 500,000 people and heating to 140,000 homes. Amagerbacke is a showcase internationally on how to combine existing technology to achieve high efficiency. However, what makes it unique is that city residents are welcome here. The plant is a ski slope, open to all. It's in the middle of Copenhagen, putting on display this process as an integral part of the urban story and marking the transformation to a more circular economy. Urbanization increases rainfall runoff. Nearly all of the surfaces in a developed urban region are impervious. The severe lack of permeable area is aggravated by density, choking drainage channels and outlets. The conventional wisdom in managing urban drainage has been to extricate the runoff as efficiently as possible and to expel it quickly. However, with growing urban agglomerations, this merely transfers the problem from one location to another. The spike in the urban drainage hydrograph following intense rainfall generates new and more complex problems downstream. In contrast, seeing runoff as part of the larger water cycle makes storm drainage a design opportunity. Designing infiltration into the storm water system reinstates some of its hydrological function, partially at least. Storm water is no longer a nuisance to be removed in haste, but an invaluable component of the cycles underlying the urban ecosystem, to be held and incorporated into it. Nelson Bird Waltz has realized such innovative stormwater management interventions in their landscape design for 2 university campuses. The Eco Commons at the Georgia Tech campus replicates historic streams and introduces native biotopes as infiltration zones into the hydrology of the campus. It allows students to interact with and monitor ecological processes. The Dell at the University of Virginia restores a 400-meter length of piped stream into a living, working part of the ecosystem. The design explores innovative interpretations of local stormwater conveyance and collection in its channels and detention ponds. It evokes regional geology through deliberately expressive native plantings and traditional site constructions. These landscape process and store rainwater more effectively through visually compelling, highly functional and revelatory stormwater management strategies. Not only do they work in reducing the net runoff exiting the site, but they also create immersive experience that foster ecological awareness. Large quantities of suspended matter and pollutants are introduced into the water cycle when it traverses an urban region. Conventional piped or lined stormwater drainage empties this polluted water directly into the regional basin. Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park in Singapore was created through the reimagining of one of Singapore's old concrete drainage channels. The stretch of lined channel passing through the park was renaturalized, conceived as a cleansing link between the urban catchments surrounding it and its outflow to the regional watershed. Water from adjacent neighborhoods enters the central water course through a series of cleansing biotopes placed along the edges of the park. Flowing through the shallows of the main stream edged with native communities of reed plants, aerates it further and renders it sparkling clear. Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park connects the residents of the neighborhood to their larger natural environment. Ramboll's design for the landscape at Punggol Waterway Ridge adopts the same holistic approach to managing stormwater runoff. The runoff is conveyed through vegetated swales. Various landscape components designed for infiltration and periodic inundation function as bioretention basins during rain. When dry, they revert to being functional spaces for community use. Green roofs, infiltration and retention in the landscape flatten out the runoff hydrograph, removing nutrients and suspended pollutants before draining to the central basin. This is Watercolor, a residential development in Florida, designed by Nelson Bird Waltz. They utilized the hydrologic function of the region's natural wetland mosaic landscapes as runoff modulators. The stormwater system for the development comprises a network of infiltration swales vegetated with natives. These bring runoff into a wetland landscape that evokes the region's ecological heritage of tannin black water creeks. Boardwalks allow residents to experience the ecological performance of these rare terrestrial and aquatic environments preserved. The ecological processes at work ensure runoff water of high quality, intelligently connecting through a bioretention system to the lake beyond. Cities modify regional hydrology. They import water, often across large distances. They pump it out of the ground, depleting aquifers and causing subsidence. Elsewhere, they release it spent, saturating soils and setting up new flows. The impact of these hydrological disruptions is heightened, changing climate regimes. Coastal and floodplain cities especially are more vulnerable than ever before. Copenhagen was hit by devastating floods in 2011 when 150 millimeters of rain fell in an hour. This led the city to make a plan for flood resilience against the threat of future cloudburst events and rising sea levels that could preclude free drainage. Ramboll devised the cloudburst resilience formula for Copenhagen. They analyzed the drainage patterns and proposed a sequence of mitigation measures from upstream in the catchment down to the bottom of the sunken railway tracks. Green streets, detention streets, cloudbursts, roads and pipes linked up together in a system that holds and channels rainwater into places allowed to be flooded. Newly conceived urban canals and creeks would hold runoff and release it slowly, greatly increasing the time to peak flow. Additional retention capacity was created in the central basin to store floodwater in excess of the possible outflow rate. The plan even accounts for a possible 1-meter rise in sea level by the year 2100. Urbanity derives from people and their activities. A city comes into being when people come together to dwell and work. They need access to goods, services, and recreation, and easy mobility. Hudson Yards Public Square and Gardens connects the new number 7 subway station with New York's High Line and with 11th Avenue and Hudson Boulevard at ground level. It offers large and small-scale gathering spaces in cafes, gardens, and plazas. Diverse events of varying scale can be hosted here, and yet it also offers enough intimacy for just 2 people to meet up casually. It's a people place where interactions, art, culture, commerce, and mobility are brought into convergence. The Kampung Admiralty was named Building of the Year at the World Architecture Festival 2018 in Berlin. It's a spectacularly beautiful and extraordinary building, but it's not just its aesthetics that render it unique. Kampung Admiralty redefines a way of life for its neighborhood. Singapore faces social and demographic problems similar to many other developed economies. An insular way of life in a nuclear family and an aging population often means that children and the elderly have no caregiver at hand. Over and above the immediate practice and economic impact of this, it also gives rise to deeper issues of loneliness, even depression among the elderly. Kampung Admiralty brings together multiple age groups. It's a daycare and a facility for the elderly at the same time. It has playgrounds and medical facilities. It's a public interaction space at the ground level and a market for food vendors at the next. Classes for older children and teens can be held here, and small and medium events at many potential venues created by the design of the building. There's even a food garden at the uppermost level of the building. It's the focus of urban life, the activity center for the neighborhood. Life, play, eating, meeting, and social interaction. It fulfills multiple functions in the urban ecosystem as dwelling, market, social facility, public square, and mobility hub. The Kampung Admiralty building is also designed to perform an ecological function in the neighborhood water cycle. It does not channel stormwater directly to runoff, thus contributing the runoff surge that follows the tropical downpours of Singapore. The building itself is collector and reservoir. Stored rainwater is utilized, and even the rain in excess of storage capacity is cleaned through a biotope and held in a live bioretention pond before any overflow is sent to the drainage system.
The water falls on the building, is collected into the drains, finds its way to the rain garden, which is that hole there in the ceiling. That is the rain garden. There the water is purified and cleaned. And then it is brought to the ballasting tanks, which you find on either side of this building here. where we store about 4 million liters of water on an annual basis. If we've got overflow or too much water, the water is cleaned through a biotope that sits over there and then comes back into this detention pond that you see here. That is part of the heart of the community where fishes are alive, when people are actually taking care of these fishes. And then if we've got too much water, it overflows into the sewer system.
The design interventions featured here are diverse responses to strengthen or rectify any systemic weakness in the workings of fundamental cycles underlying the urban ecosystem. The system's approach is universally valid. Solutions, however, are necessarily unique to each specific context, to prevailing conditions, and to stakeholder aspirations. A meticulous planning process is therefore necessary. It starts with the collection of exhaustive and precise data. In many situations, this is often available with different public institutions and government departments, but seldom are these collated on the same platform. Parallelly, continuous public engagement is needed to understand aspirations, to communicate ideas and proposals, and gain feedback. The competition for the Founders Memorial is now a traveling exhibition of the final shortlisted entries, intended to gauge public approval. It's only thus that robust design solutions ideal for community and location can emerge, that a functioning urban ecology can be created.